coming to the distribution panel. Today we have David Seth Cohen, who is my crowdfunding expert, because he, I don't know, did you win an award from Kickstarter?
No, I just had a successful campaign.
You just had a successful campaign, okay. Dave is also a wonderful filmmaker, sought after. We're going to say sought after, right?
Sure.
Sought after filmmaker. We have Richard Brownstein, who is, give me the name of the company again.
Financial Health Centers and Sound Entrepreneur.
Okay, and he works with family financing, small family financing?
All different kinds. Helping retirement planning. Yeah, I'll tell you about that.
Okay, and he's going to explain self-directing IRAs to us, because I just found out you don't have to get mom and dad to mortgage the house. You can just take control of their IRAs and make them money. Marten, Kayles, who works in film financing and puts together funding for companies and slates of films, and he and his significant other, Izzy Church, I understand, just have projects in development, so that's wonderful, and congratulations. Yay!
So there are a lot of different things that I look for. One is a solid script. That's pretty much it. I've been reading scripts for 20 years, I guess. So I've read a lot of scripts. I've also had experience on the film production side and so forth. So I'm looking for things that suit different elements. I've learned along the way that there are so many different ways to finance a film, but also there's so many different types and producers who want to do a certain project. And so, for me, I look for mostly a really solid script and then the package that follows along with it. So that means a business plan and also any kind of attachments. It doesn't necessarily have to have that, but I do look for that because of the nature of, I want to know if it's a commercial project, if it's an indie, if it's a big blockbuster film, if it's going to be something that could be put into a slate of projects. And so really there is a lot of things I look for, but pretty much simply it is the script, it's the writing, and then the team, the producers themselves, and then the attachments, and there's some other stuff as well, but that's the basis of it. So along the way, of course, it's been there's a lot of different projects that I've been looking at, but some of them the funds come from family offices. Others come from firms that are dealing with it, so maybe a wealth management firm. Also, some of them are dealing with high net worth individuals. And so, I go to a lot of different things. Over the years, I've put money into projects, and so I've learned the hard way that, it's good to have a team of people that mitigate the risk. And so, in the beginning, I was just looking, okay, I'm gonna get behind it, I'm gonna get equity into it, or then I learned that, okay, maybe not just that. And so, I think it's really project dependent. So I know that if a film is a budget of $5 million and you need $1.5 million equity, I go, okay, I know somebody who can do that, or maybe I put a little bit of capital in or do development, so it really depends. And mostly I think it also depends on whether or not you're looking for tax incentives, and there's people for that. There's people for your gap financing, people for other things. And so, I've met a lot of people along the way, and I just go, right, so I know that I can come in with this, or I know somebody who can come in with that, and then I know that there's tax incentives and so forth to help you out.
So first of all, a little bit of background about myself. I'm a certified financial planner. I've been practicing for about 26 years. My background is I was a major in music and a major in electrical engineering. So I went into the recording business. I worked on major projects, audio related, CDs. They weren't CDs back then. 2-inch tape with razor blades. John and I were chatting about that.
I remember those.
Yeah, so I got some gold and platinum albums, and I had a nice career there. And then I really saw it wasn't working. For me, as well as I wanted in that, I wanted to see more of a financial situation, and I just wanted to own a recording studio, and it just said that's not going to be an economic structure. So I just changed careers, bought and sold the business, and ultimately I liked the financial side, stayed in that, went back to school, and here I am 26 years later. So now, quick background. I've helped people put together using IRAs in a very creative way. Most people, when you look at an IRA and they think, oh yeah, what can I buy with my IRA? It's typically stocks and bonds, right?
What does it mean?
Okay, an IRA is an individual retirement account. Most of you, if you've worked for some significant company, you've had a 401k, or you've had, if you're self-employed, a SEP, self-employment kind of plan, or a KEO, or some version of that. But ultimately, these all can be what we call rolled over into an IRA, an individual retirement account. What that is pre-tax dollars growing tax sheltered, and you can invest in basically stocks and bonds for most people. And if you're with one of the big firms that that advertise on TV, that's all you're really going to be able to do with that money. However, if you go to what's called a specialty custodian, and a custodian is a person or an entity that oversees and manages, to make sure that it's not violating the IRA rules, they will be able to go into specialty kinds of opportunities for you. So you could, for instance, instead of buying a stock or a bond, you could buy real estate, right? You could buy a house, you could buy a strip mall, you could buy a mortgage note, you could buy a business. You can also put it together and have an LLC owned using your IRA. And with that, as an LLC, as a member of an LLC, you can have other people put their IRA money in there, and as long as the LLC is investing in something that makes sense for the IRA as an arm's length deal, it's like you're not going to be self-dealing, in other words, making something very good for you and not the IRA. As long as the IRA looks at it, the custodian is looking at it, saying it's a real investment opportunity, you can put that together, and the LLC can be a film, right? So that's the entity of what's going on.
I have no clue about that.
All right? Haven't heard? No.
I love
Well,
that.
I was telling you before, I had a situation. I have a guy that is a wealth manager, loves my project, wants to be involved, but he's scared of all the regulations dealing with his clients, so he doesn't know how to go around it. This is obviously an amazing workaround for any wealth advisor that's not at one of the bigger
Right.
firms, I guess.
All right. So the LLC would be the investment firm for the film that you'd want to produce, right? That would be the project. So now the problem occurs. Where are these custodians that allow it? Because if you go to probably the persons, or I should say the firm that holds your investments in your IRA, and say, can we do this self-directed IRA? The answer will be no. There's only about 8 custodians in the country that allow these kinds of specialty types of investments. So what you would do is you would transfer your cash, essentially, your investments in your IRA, and you do a transfer to the new custodian. So you go from I hate using names, but I'll just use a generic name, Vanguard, okay? Everyone knows Vanguard. You go from Vanguard, from their IRA, tax neutral transfer to this other custodian's money market, okay? And then what you'll do is you'll submit your business plan to the custodian. They got to make sure it passes muster with the P's and Q's so that you're not doing anything wrong, and they're going to keep you from making mistakes is what's going to happen. And then you take then they'll have the money, and what happens is you get approved by the project, and there's going to be a management firm that oversees the money, right? That's a custodian. And they're just going to direct the funds to wherever they need to ultimately get to, okay? And it's all going to be tax sheltered, so there's no taxable event to your IRA as the money moves out to these projects. So it's kind of a hard thing to understand when I explain it like that, but think of it like this. Go back to your mutual fund that you have in your IRA. What's the mutual fund buying? It's buying stock, right? And what's a stock? It's a piece of a company. So how does that work? So the custodian releases money to buy a stock, which is a business interest, which could be your LLC, which could be your movie. Okay, and that's how that would work. So now, here's where the challenges arise. Everyone thinks that, oh great, I'll just call mom and dad, I'll take my money and stick it in there and everything's gonna be fine. Here's the basic rules that most people are gonna trip up on. So as long as you're within these basic rules, it's gonna work for you, okay? So the IRA retirement plan can't conduct transactions which benefit the IRA owner, the beneficiaries or other disqualified persons, or your business. That's called self-dealing, okay? So in other words, the disqualified people on number 2, persons include your parents, grandparents, children, grandchildren, plus their spouses and fiduciary. Forget about the word fiduciary for a second, but think of it this way. Anybody that's within the lineal bloodline, up or down, and their spouses are considered disqualified persons, okay? Now, is your brother and your sister a disqualified person? No. Are their spouses? No. But your spouses, your children are, and if your children married, their spouses are, and your grandparents are, and go up the line. But deviate a little bit? No. So brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, cousins, they're all fair game, okay? Now, fiduciary would be someone like myself, okay? So I would not be able to get involved, okay, as that, nor could my wife, or there's other restrictions around that, okay? So that would be the person that was the fiduciary. So it spells it out here. Number 4, you can't loan money to yourself or other disqualified persons from your IRA. Now, if I wanted to loan money, I could loan money to let's say my brother is having, financial difficulties. He lost his job, his house might be in foreclosure possibly. He needs money. I can loan him money from my IRA as long as it's an arm's length transaction and there's a note, right? And there's maybe collateral with his house to protect my interest. That's the IRA interest, that's fine. But what you can't do is you can't borrow money from your IRA to loan it to yourself to put into your entity to do the film. That would be self-dealing rules. Okay, so you gotta watch out for that. And another one is called a stepped transaction. I think I have that, yeah, that's number 5. So you think you're gonna get around this, right? So you do it this way. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have my brother loan money to my sister, and then she'll loan it to me, and then I'll put it into my, okay, it's a stepped transaction because the disqualified person is actually, well, I did that wrong. Let me start again. Let's say I wanted my mom's money into my project directly, okay? That would be a disqualified person, my mom, right? However, what I'll do is I'll get my mom to loan it to my brother, and then my brother can invest it in the IRA, into the LLC. You follow that route, my brother? Okay. That would technically be a stepped transaction. It's stepped from my mom to my brother, ultimately to the IRA, LLC. So that would technically not be allowed. But if you're wanting to do something like that, there are ways of structuring it so that's okay. You just gotta not do it outright. In other words, there's 3 parts to an IRA transaction that if you hit all 3, they will be disqualified. First, it has to be between the IRA and the project, okay? So it's gotta be with your IRAs, obviously, that's one. Second one, it can't be between a disqualified person and the IRA. So these would be the 3 strikes that would make it wrong. And the third one, it can't be through a disqualified person to the project. Okay? So give you an example how if I want to raise some money and I want this film and I want to put the money from my mom into this film, and she just puts it in, and I'm an owner on the LLC and she's a contributor on the LLC, but the LLC, and I don't think it's on here, if the LLC has more than 50% interest in disqualified persons, it's not allowed. Okay, so as long as it's less than 50%, it can work. So those are some basic rules, and I could go on, but I'm just going to conclude the concept of what you can do is it's sort of like this. If you want to put together a film and you need some money, IRAs are now fair game, where they may not have been before.
Excellent. Okay, Dave?
Yeah, I'm here for the crowdfunding part. I had done a Kickstarter campaign and we beat our goal by 12%. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay.
What was your goal?
No.
What was your goal?
35,000. We got 36 and change, and then there were other people that just sent in cash, like outside of Kickstarter, which was the best thing you could possibly get.
I'm not a fan of crowdfunding campaigns because I suck at them. That's why Dave is here.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to mention Section 181 of the IRS tax code. Does everybody know about Section 181?
Yeah.
You do. Okay. Section 181 through the Job Act allows 100% investment deduction. Through the Jobs Act, if jobs are created. Okay? Section 181 of the U.S. tax code allows for a 100% deduction if an investment is made that creates jobs. If an investor invests in your film, they are allowed to invest up to $15 million, and they can deduct that $15 million if jobs are created. That expires December 31st of 2016. It was retroactive. Congress approved the budget, the 2015 budget in November, and somebody snuck in the retroactive continuation of Section 181 from 2014 through 2015 and to the end of 2016. You are allowed to grandfather a film into Section 181 if you shoot one scene. Does not have to contain the actors, does not have to be shot on the set where it's going to be shot in the end. And if you shoot the remainder of the movie in 2017, if Section 181 is not continued, then you can still claim the investment in that film because you grandfathered it. It's one of those things that they always say, oh, it doesn't do any good, but film projects always put on about, a big budget, $15 million budget, puts on about 100, 200 people, and it keeps them employed sometimes for up to 3 months. It's not a bad investment from the country. There's also Section 199, which allows you to deduct the first 9% of profit. You don't have to pay taxes on the first 9% of a Section 181 investment. You have to pay it only on the 91% that remains.
That's Section 199, you said?
Section 199. Did I screw it up? No. Probably. Anyway, these are, in addition to everything else that I'm learning, it's a wonderful enticement for an investor that they get to deduct up to $15 million. Okay? So that's something that if you want to talk about it, I also have the DGA Section 181 printout from 2008 because this has been around for a long time, and it's worth your while to include it in your business plans, to include it in your pitches and your one sheets. Whatever you get in front of an investor, say that this project is available to be deducted under Section 181. Okay? And they are.
As long as we have the same shot.
That's to grandfather it. If you shoot your film between now and December 31st, you don't have to grandfather anything because your film will be done and be 100% deductible.
Right.
Okay? And with tax incentives, there are requirements and restrictions with the Section 181. Other than going over the $15 million, I don't think there's any other restrictions. Okay? Go ahead.
So does the project have to be under a separate LLC, and how do you show and qualify that you've shot that for whatever you're dealing with?
With Section 181,
Yeah.
that's all up to your CPA. He is going to, most film projects today are shot under an LLC just to keep everybody safe.
Yeah.
And it allows for the investment to go directly into the LLC. Section 181 will cover it. So if you've got a $20 million budget, your investor can put in 20 million, or he can put in 15 million, and somebody else can put in 5 million, and they should be safe, and both of them should be able to deduct the entire amount of their investment. Okay, so that was something I wanted to mention.
So get a good CPA.
In the U.S., each state, or most states, have tax incentives and rebates. They vary. Louisiana used to have 30%. I don't know what Jindal did before he left. He may have canceled it. Mississippi has 25%, but they have an anti-LGBT law, so we're not going to shoot there. Florida has a 20%, but they exhausted their funds through June of 2016. But they're now in the state Congress or the state Senate, and they're deciding if they're going to continue it. New York State has a very interesting setup because it has 3 tiers. It also has a 30% deduction in the city, 35% deduction outside of the city, meaning upstate New York and Long Island. You can get up to 35% to 40% in tax incentives because they want to.
No, it's only for, but the thing with New York, you're right about it, but it's only local labor. So like if you're
So
bringing.
if I bring in somebody from Massachusetts, it doesn't work.
Right, they don't
Okay.
count.
But
Other states.
We've got a great employee pool. We've got a great crew pool.
But if you're bringing an actor from LA that's gonna cost you $5 million, you're not getting any money back because of that, so that's.
Really?
Yeah.
All right, I didn't know that.
Well,
Ron
yes,
Howard's got
It
residential.
can't be a non-resident. If it's a non-resident in New York, they don't count. They don't count towards your
How long does
non-resident.
New
Six.
resident?
3 to 6
I think it's New
months.
York in general.
Okay, so it's
You might be right, it might be the city, but I think it's New York in general is non-resident.
Okay,
We can
because in
look it up in Long Island. Yeah.
Massachusetts, you can hire anybody from New England, which includes Maine, Rhode Island, Connecticut. Those you need an extremely good CPA because they have to follow the guidelines and the requirements. Okay, now if you're pitching to an investor, you have section 181, they can deduct 100% of their investment. If you have tax incentives of 20% and your business plan says that they will recoup 120% first out, or however you want to word it, they could basically recoup everything by deducting their 100% investment and getting a 20% tax incentive. Okay? Certain countries, Canada has a 30% tax incentive. Spain is 33%, and there are no restrictions and no requirements. You just have to shoot in Spain. You can bring everybody and your mother. I'm trying to think who else.
Belgium,
Belgium, I don't know what their incentive is.
they have I think it's 20%. Yeah.
Okay.
then-
Italy has, go ahead.
No, well, the other thing about shooting in other countries is they will also give you grants potentially to shoot there. There was
And
like
they have local, in addition to
Yeah.
the country, they have local the same way that we do.
there was a film that's going to be out this year called The Secret Scripture. Jim Sheridan directed it.
Okay.
It's got like Rooney Mara and a bunch of other people. They got a tax incentive, I believe it was $6 million, directly from the government to shoot in Ireland. So they got the tax rebate in whatever the tax, I don't know what Ireland has, but
No.
tax plus they were given $6 million to shoot there, which I think they have to pay it back, but it's over a certain amount of years. I'm not sure
That's
how it
fine.
works. But
That's fine.
some countries they'll give you money to shoot there.
Yes, and Italy just instituted a $500 million film fund to bring people into Italy to shoot. Yeah, it is actually, but it also takes 50 years to get your money back, even though it's there. So yes, I believe it's like $500,000. But there are also co-production agreements between a lot of the countries, excluding the U.S. If you shoot a film in Canada with a French actress with an English director, you are eligible for about 20% from each country through a co-production agreement. So you could garner about 60% of your budget. Certain countries are only 10%. I think Italy is part of it, but they cancel it every 6 months, so it's just a wonderful place to shoot movies. Everybody in Italy goes someplace else unless they need the Colosseum. So there's so many ways to put a package together, and a lot of investors have started saying, well, have you thought about shooting in Canada? Yes, I have. They have a 30% tax incentive. And somebody told me that the Canadian dollar is going to be worth 56 cents to the US dollar, the $1 in the United States. Oh, really? I didn't know that. No. So you gain points when you say these things to investors, okay? And stop me because I keep saying okay. So, you know, they may say, well, you need, you know, I need this kind of landscape. Okay, well, I can shoot in Spain. I can get an ocean location and 33% deduction. Well, can you get any more? I doubt it. It's 33% flat. But if you do a co-production with Spain and with somebody else, you may be able to bring in 20% more from each country towards your budget in addition to that 33%. You have to be really creative. You have to know where you can shoot and what you can do, okay? Because if you're going to pitch to an investor, they're going to want to know that they're talking to somebody who's done their research.
Only like a few police, like it depends on the size of what you're shooting. If you need to block off a whole street and you need like 50 police, you're gonna pay for that. They'll give you like one police officer if you have like a small little shoot, that comes with it. It's not gonna be a big entourage of police if you have like a big scene that's gonna,
I like
yeah.
the.
But they do
top
give you-
three. That works for me.
Yeah, I actually call,
Stand by my CPA who's making sure I'm covered on everything.
yeah.
That's it.
No,
Okay.
they do though, that is true. They will give you like a police officer.
Okay.
But it's not, they're not gonna give you, I mean, think about it, they have to pay the police officers to be there. So, when I called up about this actually recently, because I had a couple questions for like a small shoot that I did, and they said, you know, you get the permits, you pay for your permits, they supply a police officer, but if it's a shoot where you need to block off a whole city street and you need a whole team of police, that's a different story. Your permit, it's all gonna be paid for, and your permits are gonna cost much more, which will bring in the, you see what I'm saying?
Okay.
Because like they have a flat rate, I think it's like $200 or something to shoot on the street. It's some low figure. It's not an expensive. It's not expensive to shoot. But if you're gonna block off a whole block and then you need extra policemen and all this kind of stuff, that's when it's gonna cost you more money.
Okay.
See what I'm saying? So like a small little shoot, one person, you know, doing an interview in Times Square.
Okay, so you're gonna get one cop, okay?
Yes,
Then
at
you're
least
gonna
a cop.
dress up actors as other cops and say, stand there. They're only $100 a day.
There you go.
Make them extras. Okay. A production incentive guide through ease.com. It breaks down each state. It breaks down all of their requirements. And I did have a handout prepared, but I didn't bring it with me like Richard did.
That's ease.com?
Ease, EASE.com. I'm sorry.
That's great. Thank you.
Now, he handed that handout to me at lunch one day. I said, please bring it with you. Anyway, they break it down, so you can actually hand whatever's there. I always include it in a schedule, an Annex A or an Annex B at the back of my business plan, along with the breakdown for Section 181 and Section 199, because it's just, hi, you can read about this because you're an investor, so you're going to understand this dialogue much more than I am. You know, my CPA is going to understand it. But certain states, Massachusetts told me that I could apply, if all my paperwork was in order, I could apply for my production incentive, my tax incentive, the first day of shooting. So that by the time the shoot is over, I could pre-sell my tax credits. And when you pre-sell your tax credits, you're not going to get 100% of the tax credit. You're going to get 92 or 93%. The tax credit purchaser is going to take 3% of that. So you may get 90%, you may get 87%.
85.
But, huh?
I was gonna say 85.
Massachusetts, I'm talking about. I did this one.
Yeah.
So 87%, and you know, it was, I would be able to get that money by the time I hit post-production, and I would be able to put it into my budget. And that's what they told me. Didn't shoot in Massachusetts yet, don't know if it's true or not. But, you know, I've got people in Massachusetts that are waiting for me to make the movie so that they can buy my credits. So, go ahead.
I heard that there's 2 states, that Georgia and Illinois, that give you the money up front. You don't have to sell. I think it's Georgia. And
Georgia, I think, Louisiana
Louisiana.
may have been the other one, but like I said, I don't know what Jindal did, because when this new governor came in, he's reevaluating everything that Jindal closed down before he left. And he's much more liberal, and he's much more Democrat, much more of a Democrat than Jindal was. So they think it's going to come back, because Louisiana was a big chunk of your budget.
By the way,
So,
I
go ahead.
think New York, if you shoot in New York with the tax credit, this is what the guy told me when I called the film office.
Okay.
They'll deposit the money directly into your account. It's 100. You get 100% of the money in New
Really?
York. Yeah, there's some sort of.
Before?
No, I think it's after.
Okay.
I think it's or once you hit post.
Okay.
But if you have any questions about these tax incentives and stuff, you call the governments. Look up. I mean, call up the film. The film office.
Fees.com. It's
Yeah.
every state lists the film commission office.
And once you do that as well, I mean, there are people who will buy those tax credits. They'll explain it to you. If you want to do it yourself, you can definitely do that. But then if
Yes.
you want to team up with somebody who's going to buy them, they'll walk you through it A to Z. And so there you can really get to know, because they're going to partner up with you, and they're going to be the ones investing, and they want to make sure that your film project is going to be able to.
Yeah.
There are also companies that only want to do slates of films, and they're bigger, and then there's other ones that they'll be happy to do independent one-offs, and so they'll look at, a single film. So they all deal with different criteria as well.
Right. Product placement. There are product placement people who will help you get soda, alcohol, beer, whatever you can think of, into your movie, and you can be paid money from those brands to spotlight them in your film. Okay? Sometimes it's not a lot of money, sometimes it is a lot of money. Depends who's in your movie. If Bruce Willis is in your movie and he's drinking a Bud Light, that's an awfully big piece of advertising for Bud Light. Okay, so there are also companies, gentlemen asked before about nonprofits, about Amnesty International. If they really believe in your project, you can get a sponsorship. There are certain companies that have to put a percentage of their profits back into either nonprofit organizations or their corporate foundations. So if it's something that matches up with them, you could get a sponsorship for your film.
So there's different times to look at the equity. It depends on what somebody's coming forth, because you might go out and decide to shoot into whatever territory. You might get the 181 and so forth. But usually, 30% of the budget is really a good number for a producer to come in for equity, around there.
30%?
25, 30%. It just depends on the individual, but it depends on the budget of the movie, because you're looking to fund that, and then all the other aspects of the tax credits and the gap financing and all that, they can make up the rest. But some people want to come in for 50%. Some people want to fund the whole thing. It really depends on your budget and how much they believe in it, and the individual that you're dealing with. And again, if it's a special situation where the person wants to get their family member in it, or they have a cause that they really want to follow, it's really a case by case. But on average, 25-30% is usually what you're looking for in equity, and it can be more or less. But through that, then that as you go, that stuff can lock in a lot of the other things you can do. You can start to get your directors, you can get everything else while you're putting all the other pieces together. And so that also means that you're going to give up a part of your project. It's not going to be a loan, or it's not going to be at a certain rate. You're going to be paying X amount on the money. Every deal is different. They're going to be in first position. They're going to want a lot of different things. For somebody who might not know what they're doing, they just I want to make a movie, and they go, well, how much do you need? And you go, $5 million. Okay, great, here it is. You never know. It really really depends. It really depends. I know some people who started in like that. They're like, I want to make a movie. So or people who are passionate about it. It really depends on the individual that you're dealing with, and whether or not you're dealing with a high net worth individual or a firm. There's some firms that will put equity into the project, but that's going to be mainly probably high commercially driven product with great attachments and sales agents or distributors on board, and all the sales numbers. And so it depends. If you're making a lower budget film, 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, it really you're going to find different investors for different things. And then there's of course family, friends. I don't find a lot of investors looking at financing short films. There's a market for it, but you were saying there's a market for it.
Yeah.
But it tends because you can put the money in and you might want to help a friend out and you go, okay, great, let's put some money behind it. But at the end of the day, where you're going to take it, how you're going to get the money back. And if they don't mind losing the money, then that's one thing. But if they are doing it for a business, then they want to make sure that they're going to get their money or their circle of monies
Are you
back.
a producer? I'm just curious what your background is. I'm not
I've
missing.
done a bunch of things. I've been a producer. I've been, again, an investor. I've been an advisor. I've worked with different individuals who want to get into film. I've worked with firms that want to have it in their portfolio, family offices, and different things. And so, where they put money directly into the production company or looked at a film and said, okay, how much, And I've looked at everything from small micro budgets to $100 million projects or slates of films that are like, and so I come in, I'm been coming in on many different levels, but it really depends. It's case by case. So as an investor, I go, okay, great, I love that person, I want that project to succeed, and I go, okay, here's this, here's that, but it's always about finding the right elements to go into that project or that company, and so.
So you have a range of projects? I mean, in terms of budget, I'm talking.
For me,
Yeah.
I looked at everything from small micro budgets to $100 million.
That's unusual, from what I know.
It depends on who you're dealing with. Some people have large capital behind them, and they go, got $100 million. Right now I'm dealing with two potential new partners that I've been slowly working with. They have large sums of money, and they want to put $500 million into a project. And if they get everything together and they have everything, they want to focus on, African films or African American films. Or then there's somebody else who's dealing with $60 million budgets and they want to do stuff for India and so forth. So it really, again, depends on the individual that you're dealing with and how much they're willing to come in on. A large part of the studios, they look at those bigger budgets, or they look at films, once you get to a $10 million range, you want to look at partnering with studios and with other people who can really take that and have the legs to run with it. Otherwise, you're looking at ways to create a greater level of success and minimize your losses, because there are a lot of losses, but there are ways to find wins within it. There's somebody on the panel last year, he deals with investors from people who want to come to the country. There's the IRAs, there's EB5s, there's ways to do that and piece it together. But it's really, again, I know that I've sat with companies who were with the studios, the big distributors, who are financing slates of films, and they're like, well, we've got the next 20 films that need, $100 million. What do you say? And also with, a single individual that says, my movie's gonna be like 20 grand, and how about we'll go with it? But I've been fortunate to have been able to sit in different environments through my relationships to really navigate it in a different way. So again, for me, it's just that. But for somebody else, it might be one specific thing. They deal with 5 million and under. They might deal with 10 million projects or 20 million and up, and everybody has their niche.
Thank you for bringing up EB5s. Last year, a gentleman by the name of Abbas Hamas was on the panel, and he described EB5 immigration law to us. And what that means is that if somebody wants to get a green card, if they invest $1 million in a company, which could be a film project, could be a film studio, could be a production company, could be a slate of films, they are eligible after 2 years of putting up that money. They can move into the country right away, they can become a part of that company, or they can have certain people in that company that they bring over. But it's their investment, it's their $1 million. The company has to be viable. 10 jobs have to be viable within the company, I believe, for 2 years. If it's in an economically depressed area, it could be $500,000 as opposed to $1 million. Talk to people. There's a company in Chicago who will walk you through it and explain it to you. They didn't say they would introduce me to people, but any attorney, any immigration attorney who's working with people who have money will be able to help you and direct you. So you can always contact
definitely somebody who specializes at immigration, because they're going to have the individuals who are looking for ways to get
Exactly.
here.
Into the country.
And there's a lot
They
of
might not have a specialty in film, but then that's also where you can navigate them, if you know, to get them to
Exactly.
say,
Don't they
hey,
also,
did you
like-
know that this could happen? And they're like, okay. So you can make things work. I always find that if you have that vision, there's ways to go about it, and that's specialists who work and navigate.
Didn't he say last year that they don't even like get like a profit on their money? It's like they just get paid back.
They get paid
Their
a
investment, and that's it?
Straight 1 million.
So if you could get somebody to put up $1 million and you don't have to give them anything on top of that, it's like gold.
The only fee you have to pay is the retainer fee.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is,
So that's your fee.
Right, that's
Not
yours.
to them, but so think of it as your
It's not back.
30% on your money
Yeah.
that you had to pay back.
Yeah.
What about the companies like Vine and so forth that deal with minimum guarantees? They finance stuff off your minimum guarantees. There are firms that are out there who look at doing the gap financing or financing.
I'm gonna let you take that then. You go ahead.
Yeah, just there are companies out there as well that will, they're looking for investments for their clients, and like one of them's Vine or whatever. They pool a bunch of people's money and then they want to finance the gap. So they'll be like, okay, what do you have? And they look at the solar project and they go, well, you got equity, you've got tax credits, you've got the EB5 or whatever it is, or IRAs. And they go, okay, great. I think we can come in at this amount, and because they're going to want to take a smaller risk on it, and they'll be maybe not making 30%, but they might make 9 or 10 or 12%.
But they'll
and
make
they're
it
happy.
faster, don't they? They make it.
Yeah, there's a
they're last
waterfall.
in,
It really depends on
last in,
who
first
your
out.
lawyer is and how you gauge your
Okay.
waterfall, because you could make a deal with somebody and then you're giving up rights and you're giving up points and you're giving up this and that, and so you really have to know how these all place together, and so then you can go out and structure a deal that is appropriate, and you also want to deal with somebody who might be able to help you with that. There are people out there who will help you figure out at what points they should come in and at what points you need to put forward your tax credits or how to structure your business plan. You rely on a whole pool of people who specialize in it. There are a lot of people who want to get a film done who have that knowledge, and they won't charge you a lot, or they'll do it and they become a producer on your project for points and so forth, and so they have a knowledge base that is essential to your team. Don't think that you have to do it all by yourself, because the fact is you got a room full of people here, and you meet each other and you go, okay, great, what are you working on? I know I don't have this, but you have that, and let's find a way and I'll give you a credit. A lot of people, I think, feel like they have to hold on to something because it's their baby. And on the other side, don't give up too much. Fight for the rights of not having to pay too much, and really don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but just find a way to do it and team up with people that are going to really get you to where you need to go. I've come across many screenwriters, many producers, many directors who just were like, I'm not going to do it if this is not going to happen, and I'll just put it to the side and I'll let my vision die, and I'd rather not do it. So there's been those people who are like, well, what happens if you brought this? And you have to navigate the sensitivities, and at the end of the day, 10 years later, they haven't made a thing. And then there's others who say, you know what, that's going to cost me this. I'll give up a point here, but I'm not going to give up too much. And so they'll find a way to structure it to bring on somebody who you might not have to pay for,
Right.
but you'll get them involved.
Thank you. You also reminded me, Dave was asking about foreign sales agents. Does everybody know that if you come to an investor or to a bank with a bankable foreign sales agent's numbers, that you can go to a National City Bank, to a Bank of America? They all have vice presidents of entertainment who will work with your numbers, work with the numbers based on the foreign sales agent. And that's why they always have to give you a high and a low. They may only give you a loan based on your low, and you may then have to add a 20% completion bond fund to your budget to cover it in case it's not made, or in case it bombs, or whatever the hell they want to phrase it as. But you can then get a loan from a bank based on a bankable sales agent's pre-sales numbers. Go
That's
ahead.
what I was talking about earlier about the minimum guarantees, where you can get money off of that. You go to a fund, or you can go to a bank. Again, there's so many of them.
Yes.
I just met a really approachable guy at 53 Bank. He's awesome. It seems like they want to do more within the space. They're probably one of the top 10. But there are also different levels of the bankers. some of them are in California, some of them do it here. There's film departments in different banks, from Bank of America, Chase, and so forth. You just find their film department, and you hopefully, if you want to navigate it on your own, or you deal with somebody who already has those relations. There are people who will actually help you get the that funding.
And sometimes they will, the bank will direct you to a foreign sales agent who will get you the numbers that you need.
Yeah.
Because it pays, it helps them and it helps you. So,
And you build their fees into your budget, and so
Exactly.
therefore when they go to sell your film at Cannes or wherever else, it's already within the budget, so that's already been financed. You don't have to do it on top, and then it just helps you along. For what you're doing, there are 2 different crowdfunding sources, so or more. There's more now, but just keep that in mind, because some of them do have it. But I wanted to ask you myself, with what you did on the success of it and 35,000, would you do it again?
No. I would if I had actors attached and
Yeah.
a team to really do it, but by myself, no. It's like an 18-hour day process if you do it right. You have to use all the resources available to you to get anybody to put money into your campaign.
Yeah.
Right. All you have to do is come into a room like this and say, "Can I get $10, $10, $10, $10, $10?"
That wouldn't even come close.
There's part of my budget. Anybody want to give me $10 to all of you? There you go.
I mean,
that's pretty much what
Yeah.
it is, though. It's
Yeah,
just
but
on
let-
social
let me-
media.
if you have
Yeah.
a big network of people, it's worth it because you can potentially do it. I mean, you have to have a network. You have to have a network that has a network, and you have to have people that really care enough about you and your project to share it and to get it out there, because that's what it's about.
There's been a lot of successes at it, though.
Yes.
There's been a lot of people who've raised a lot
Rob
of money.
Cohen with the Veronica Mars movies.
But
Zach
those
Braff,
are stars.
They're pre-established.
I mean, that's easy.
That's just
So-
it. They've
so
got
If you're a
attachments.
nobody, how are you going to get yourself out there?
But you attach somebody who is a somebody.
If you can.
I've dealt with people who've gone down with crowdfunding. Some of their campaigns, they didn't meet their thing, but it is an avenue to do a stepping platform. So if you're doing something small, going and asking somebody, "Hey, can I get $35,000 to do my project?" One person, unless they really love you, care about you, or whatever it is, they might be like, no. So it is a platform, and it's always I've heard it been said that in order to do a $500,000 movie, do a $100,000 movie, and before you do that, do a $35,000 movie, and before you do that, do a $5,000, and start building your competency, create a track record, because then what's going to happen is when you approach an investor, I don't know what levels everybody's at, but then on your next one it's going to be that much easier, because then they know you have the experience, or work some years in on the production side, or get involved with however you can on other people's films and get that experience. But either way, you build a solid track record, and that's what a lot of people are going to be looking for on the larger levels. They want to know that you're going to be successful with taking their money and not gambling it away. And so starts 5,000, 25, 50, 100, 300, 500, 1 million. Oh, great, now you're doing larger things. And something to keep in mind around that as well is that there's a lot of in-kind, and there's a lot of volunteered or deferred, and that should be looked at in the budget as well. If you say, oh, it only cost me $2,000 cash, but it didn't mention that you had 20 people on set and they would have their fees and you never paid them, so really your project budget was maybe 10,000 or 20,000, but it's all deferred, and so it's going to be also seen as a $20,000 project is more viable to make sure you build that in, rather than say $2,000 and that's really what I spent. I'm going to put it on IMDb, and somebody look at it and go, well, you've only done 2,000. Really think about all the other things to say, I have a track record. It's just everyone deferred, and their time is money. Everybody's time is money, and so therefore, that was my budget. I just didn't have to pay it.
And be careful when you defer things in your budget, because the guilds will, when you report your budget to the guild, if you deferred something and you claim that it was only a $250,000 budget, but it wound up with deferred payments being $750,000 budget, the union, SAG, DGA, everybody else will charge you $750,000 fees as opposed to the $250 ultra budget fees. okay? So be very careful.
But also it doesn't become payable until you actually put it into
They
screen.
still consider it part of the budget. I just had a conversation with somebody because Rick Bach and I were gonna invest in it, or he was gonna find investors. I shouldn't say I was gonna invest in it,
I think we had a call the other day with somebody at SAG and we were talking about it because
Really?
there's festivals that you put your stuff in if you're a SAG actor and so forth.
Right.
They until it gets played on the screen, they don't they consider it within the budget, but then the moment you put it on screen, that's something with deferred as well. You have to pay them.
Oh yeah, but also, but they'll raise it if you tell SAG that it's only a $250,000 movie, which is the ultra low budget agreement, and it winds up with deferred payments. You wind up at $750,000. You have to pay
Don't inflate
$1,300
it.
as opposed to the
Don't inflate it.
$100. Yeah,
Because that's another thing as well.
So you'll get nailed, okay? Because the guilds expect you to send in their budget and send in your budgets.
Yeah, about crowdfunding. Just,
Equity. I was
Yeah,
gonna
on the
ask
equity
you.
side. In 2 days, according to the Jobs Act, the Tier 3 crowdfunding is going to be made available. That's an equity crowdfunding structure.
Right, we could get,
So prior to this point, you had to be what's called an accredited investor so that you could participate in private equity kinds of deals. And an accredited investor means that you have to have $1 million net worth outside your home. You have to earn as an individual $200,000 a year, or as a family $300,000 a year for the past 3 years, and show that it's going to be continuing into the future. So that ruled out a lot of people from being able to enter into these special deals, right? Private equity deals. Well, now there's, as of May 1, you can, it's a process that's done actually all online, where they're going to vet you out, and you don't need to be an accredited investor, but you're going to be able to contribute to films if you have a crowdfund structure as a private equity without having to be an accredited investor. So what they're going to do is there's now firms popping up online that are going to be vetting out, looking at your tax return and looking at all these different things to make sure that you can, what your limits would be as far as your ability to put into projects for a year. You can raise maximum of $1 million under the Tier 3, under the crowdfunding. So this is what it's going to be like. It's going to be, let's see what's available. You don't go on to, give the money, get a t-shirt. This is actually get some equity in all these things. So you go online, you see, let me see the projects. And I like that project. So you'd go on to that project, and then you'd be routed over to a website that's going to say, answer this litany of questions. And you start answering the questions. And then I would, let's say it's my project, I would get a call one day or an email one day that says, person number 17,163 is okay to go. You can take their money up to this amount of money, and then that can be going into your project. There's a website called Wealth Forge. You might want to check that out. Wealth Forge. I just interviewed the gentleman the other day, and they are going to be one of the leaders in being able to vet out and do all the due diligence to figure out, what's possible.
Okay.
Wealth Forge. Wealthforge.com.
it's funny because like crowdfunding is really based on people giving money for like a reward of some sort. So that's changing the game for people that actually want to invest in films in a different way and actually get a piece of the puzzle.
There's a thrill and excitement for some people, and then there's the big players who want to get into it just to purely make money or have a tax write-off too. I mean, you will find people who don't care if you make losses,
Because they take the loss.
But they were all involved with the film.
They were all involved with the film, but they go, I lost money. And do you think your film's going to lose money? I've dealt with a couple. You think it's going to lose money? Oh, no, we get involved with films that lose money because we need write-offs. So there's so many types, So just keep that in mind. If you want to make sure you have an investor that is backing you and wants to be a success, don't get involved with somebody who wants you to have a failure.
Well, I would do it if I had a team of people helping me out. It was me and one friend that helped me do my campaign for the whole 30 days. The other thing is I did Kickstarter, which was great because I think Kickstarter is the most popular one. And we ended up getting people writing blogs about the film and like this and that. But Kickstarter's all or none. So if you don't get your goal, you get nothing. So, there's other, Indiegogo, there's
Rocket Hub is
GoFundMe,
another.
there's so many out there now, and they take
Rocket Hub is
various
another good one.
percentages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rocket Hub. Rocket Hub, yeah.
But I did a Kickstarter, which was really stressful because it was all or none. So, by the time we had, we were close to getting, I think we had like 12,000 left that we needed in our budget, and there was maybe like 8 days left or 9 days left. It was really nerve-wracking. The whole thing was nerve-wracking because of the fact, and I had one guy that put in $10,000 towards the end.
Wow.
Just like donation, for it.
I've heard with Kickstarter, be prepared that if you have a little gap, you'll be probably putting it on your credit card because all that work, if you don't be like, I got a balance of $5,000 on my card, I'm going to put it on there because I'm going to get all that money and then I'll pay my card off and then I'll put finance.
Well, what really stinks about that, what stinks about that is then you're also losing 10% on your money because that's what the Kickstarter's going to take. So, your best bet is unless you really feel you're going to make your goal on Kickstarter, don't do Kickstarter. I was kind of advised to do Kickstarter. I didn't even know about the whole campaign thing when I first started.
I think everyone, I don't know if anyone else is like that, but everyone's like, oh, you're doing it, do crowdfunding. Did you do a Kickstarter? I've gone on there 10 times, and if I'm like, I don't have the time, the energy, I can't do it.
Is that industry people or is that like
No,
friends and
that's
family?
people.
Yeah, so really you have to look at that as well because it's who your source is.
Industry people will say, forget it.
Yeah, and the one thing with it, I mean, like I've met those guys and they're great individuals, and Indiegogo will help you really navigate it. Kickstarter, they have people at the office that will help you navigate it, but at the end of the day, just know that you're gonna have yourself out to the open. If you make it, then when people look you up, they'll be like, oh look, they had a successful campaign. They must have a successful project. Oh, it must be good. And if you don't, then it's out there for the world to see that says they were looking at $100,000 and they made $2,000. Right. Oh, I don't know if what's up with this? So you really have to look at that as well.
Well, as far 501c3, there's nothing really I can comment. It's a non-for-profit. I do want to make one comment though. When you talk about foundations or charitable remainder trusts, things like that, they have a directive where they need to give out 5% a year of the corpus. Okay, so if you're involved, if you know of an organization that is some sort of a foundation, a 501c3, that's structured as a foundation, they need to give away 5% of the corpus each year. So that's just money for you.
That's nice, I like that.
So something I want to bring up as well is we haven't talked about is like there are compliances that you do have to do with the SEC and so forth. So once you start raising money and going out to people, unless it's friends and family, that's why crowdsourcing works. Now you're actually responsible for somebody's money, and if you're not working within Reg Ds and there's all these things that you have to look at, you could literally, if it goes sour, be responsible. And there's things that have gotten people into trouble around that. But always have a prospectus, always have a business plan, always state, have somebody to put that together for you on certain levels. If you have a $5 million budget, get a prospectus, get somebody who specializes in this, CPA or somebody, to say, I'm going out and raising money, and I've got, you can legally go to, under a certain code, you can go to 100 people, on another code, you can go to 500 people, and within that, you have to know where you're going to your investors, and that's going to determine how many people you can actually legally go out and present your project to. And so,
That's right.
I mean, you deal with that?
Yeah, there are limits as under Regulation D offerings. They call them
Reg
Reg D offerings, right? Yeah, there's limits as far as number of people that are allowed that are accredited investors, and then some are allowed non-accredited investors. I think it's 30.
30 non-accredited, then that's
on a Reg D offering. I'm not sure about that, but
there's different numbers and different amounts too. If you're going to somebody who has, up to $1 million, or if you're going to a big firm that has, lots of money.
Yeah.
So it really depends on who you're going to as well, and that's something you should either do some research on or go to somebody who knows that, or somebody who can put it together for you, because that's why crowdsourcing is good for people, because they don't have to deal with that. And for the smaller projects, I would encourage it.
Yeah, well, that's
just for track record, for cutting your chops. If you're first time at it, if you're seasoned, then maybe not.
I was gonna say, so it's not that I would never do it again,
Oh, sorry.
But I think that you need to have a team and you need to plan it. I have a friend of mine who's a filmmaker. He's a damn good filmmaker. He does everything on his own, this kid. And he put together a crowdfunding campaign and then approaches me with it after. And I said, there's no chance in hell that you're gonna make what you're looking to get. All he wanted was I think it was 20,000. And I said, there's no way. Because A, his video was way too long. B, who wants your production slides at the end? Nobody wants your production breakdown, weekly production breakdown. I don't give a shit about that. People want something that you can give them that's a piece of your project. So when you're doing your rewards, if you're gonna do a crowdfunding campaign, you need to have rewards that are something that people might want.
Be in the film.
I mean, I don't think you could offer for them to be in the film.
It's a very catchy thing with SAG.
Really?
If you
Yeah.
pay somebody
But-
to be in your film, SAG will get you.
Oh,
Right, but you could
okay.
offer credits.
Or somebody pays you to be in your
You
film,
could
so-
offer an associate producer credit for X amount of dollars.
Yes.
You could offer a dinner with them and with the director. You could offer them to come to set and be a part of it for one day. Just
But they have to pay travel costs.
right.
You're only going to take them from the airport. to
How many
the
times
set.
have you heard though that SAG or if somebody has come after these filmmakers? I mean,
In the Veronica Mars movie, Rob Cohen offered as a perk.
but that's a bigger thing. I mean, if you're dealing with 35,000 or whatever else.
It was like a $10,000 perk,
Okay.
and I was going to put it into one of my crowdfunding campaigns, and I went through the SAG rules. You are not allowed to do it.
Yeah,
Rob
it's not
had
worth
to-
it.
Yeah.
The person received the footage that they shot that they were in, but it was not allowed in the movie.
I would think.
that's interesting.
Are you?
Yeah.
Are you gonna?
Go ahead.
You're gonna.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say that. So I wouldn't necessarily tell you to not do a crowdfunding campaign. I think it could work for some people, but I think if you're gonna do it, you need to be prepared to do it. Don't just do it and think you're gonna get the money, because that would be just stupid and a waste of your time. This kid that did this campaign, it was a waste of his time. He didn't take any of my advice. Every single post that this kid made on Facebook was you had to click see more. Nobody wants to see more on Facebook or on Twitter. Twitter, you have a certain amount of space to write it. That's what you got to do. And the other thing is, when you're doing a crowdfunding campaign, because social media is going to be your way to get your friends, your family, and everyone you know, and whoever they know, you also have to remain yourself. So if you're the type of person that posts a daily motivational thing, and then all of a sudden you're just posting about your movie and donate to my movie and donate this, nobody cares, because you're going to look like a salesperson. Nobody wants to deal with you as a salesperson. People are going to buy into your movie because they like you and they believe in you and your project, and they think it could be something fun. It's with anything. I mean, you go on Kickstarter and you're selling something, right? But if you're going to consistently just barrage people with the same thing over and over again, nobody wants to see it. You got to come up with all these different ploys to do it. A lot of updates to your specific campaign. We did 3 or 4 video updates separate from the initial video that we launched. And then we did, anytime we had a news story or somebody wrote something about us, we did an update on it. That kind of stuff. And you gotta pull on people's heartstrings. Why is this so important to you? Why should they get involved? Why should they help you? Because why should somebody give you their $5 lunch money when they can spend it on themselves or on their family or whatever? Why should they give you the money? Why is it so important?
And when they don't, you're like, oh my God, you couldn't even give me $5.
Well, that's the other
It's
thing.
like-
You can't
that's
be
the other
upset. You can't be
Yeah.
pissed at people that don't give you money for your campaign, because you don't know what their situation's like. And some people, maybe they just bought a house and they don't have the extra money. They have 2 kids. Your best friend isn't going to throw you $100. You can't be upset about that. I had a bunch of friends that I know have money too that didn't give me money. They didn't give me anything. They
still
watched
your
and
friends.
watched, and they would like it. Yeah, I mean, I'm still friends with them, but they didn't put in money. And I kind of expected it going into it, and then I was like, holy shit, they didn't give me money. But you can't be pissed, because when you're dealing with money, it's a whole different situation. And that's the truth of the whole thing.
Everybody has a different temperament.
Yeah. Once you reach your goal, you could always do, like I said, an update, right? So once we hit our goal, I posted an update immediately. Hey, we made our goal, but we can't stop there. Like, you know, we could use more money for this, because you could always use the money, you know, for your project. So yeah, it's a good idea. It's a good idea, but the downside of that is if somebody sees you reached your goal, maybe they won't be as inclined to throw in, because you already made your goal. Like, you know, so there's two sides to that, but.
And you do have to balance
Yeah.
this quick thing, is that you have to know, is it better time spent taking a month building a campaign and shooting the videos and getting all the editing and all that kind of stuff and all the documentation around it to post it up and send it out and so forth, or is it better time spent to just get a bunch of friends to defer their payment and go shoot the film and have that saying, listen, you know, hopefully we do well. It really depends. There are a lot of hungry filmmakers, as well as it depends on if you want big budget stars, they're not going to do it, but a lot of hungry actors, a lot of hungry people who will get involved with you.
And B actors are cheap, by the way. They're cheap. Like, to buy.
You'd be
to get
surprised
Inexpensive,
your response to
inexpensive.
Craigslist.
Economic.
Inexpensive. Economical.
Somewhere, everywhere along the line, people are going to want something from it. They're not just going to jump in and do something unless it's your mom or your grandma or something like that as a favor. Oh, my sweet kid. They're going to want something. So Kickstarter, they want something. They want money. They're a business model. They're a platform. And they want money. Other places too, Slated or wherever. You know, they'll help you out, but they want money. It's just, you're trying to encourage people to get involved with your dream. And just remember, it's your dream. You have to entice somebody to get involved with your dream. And you have to have the skills in order to do it. You could send somebody and just say, I got a great project. And then they could just go, wow, I love it. And they didn't even sell me on it. That does happen. But again, it's your dream. It's not my dream, his dream, or his dream.
Right.
It's somebody else's dream, and you do have to entice them to
And I
say,
think-
why am I involved?
I think he's 100% right, and I think your video, your main video, is that, and just because that's, as a filmmaker, what I did was I spoke directly to my audience, and then intercut that with stuff that we had already shot. I was raising money more for post-production than for production, so we incorporated clips that we had into the video, and it worked really nicely to show who I was, why I wanted to do this, and how much it meant to me. And I think that's something a lot of people are missing. I'm just going to reference my friend again. His video said, we're already doing this, but we could kind of use your help. That's not what's going to get people. Like, we need your help, or this isn't going to get finished. Like, you need to make it clear that this dream of yours isn't going to work without these people and their participation and their help in your project. You got to make them feel like they're a part of it somehow.
Yeah. And that's that's the business side of it. I mean, and people who get involved with the larger ones, they want to know that you have a good business head, and so that's the thing. I mean, a lot of the creative side, a lot of the creatives, and some of you guys maybe just only thinking creative. The business side is essential, and you're not going to convince somebody again unless they're just never done it before and they're like, okay, let's do it, right? So, there's savvy business individuals who've looked at thousands of projects over the years and they just go, not for me.
And if you don't have that business side, partner up with someone that does. Try and get somebody that has like that business intellect, that could kind of help you with that stuff. I mean, it's always good to partner up with people, and I wouldn't, a project I'm trying to get funded right now, I'm not even concerned about what my percentage is going to be on this project. The truth of the matter is I want to get it off the ground, I want to get it made, because after this, the money will come. I'm not so concerned about myself. Whether I have to give out however many points, I don't care on this project. So you have to make sure that you'll do whatever it takes to get your film made if it's that important to you. Because you make one and you're successful with it, your investors win on it, they would probably be right in on the next one.
And you just say, this is a different deal.
Right.
First one I gave up, but now that we're successful, I want your involvement. I'd like you to get involved. You have the first right if that's the deal you make, or do you want to get involved, but it's not going to be the same deal. You figure different deals along the way. You don't always do the same deal.
Yeah.
Again.
Always ask people. Post-production houses sometimes will invest in your film and put up all your post-production costs for equity at the back end, because they also want to be filmmakers. They are filmmakers. They want to own a piece.
They want to credit or whatever.
It's all about the back end.
Sound, all that.
Talk to your catering staff. Talk to your
Like that
craft
other
staff.
vending.
Yeah,
Talk to
right.
anybody that comes on. hi, will you work for either a deferred payment or equity in the movie? I've got movies that are budgeted out where people are gonna make $500 for 4 or 5 weeks, but they're gonna get back end, when we get money, they're gonna get a big check. So talk to whoever you're talking to, okay? It's part of your movie. And if they love you and they love your movie, you can get a movie made for pretty cheap, okay? So I wanna thank these gentlemen, please give me a round of applause.